Welcome back to Kevin Reviews. I just finished watching The Punisher Warzone. This is a 2008 film by Lionsgate Productions and Marvel Entertainment, or it's the first time that's being used. Marvel Knights. This is directed by Lexi Alexander, written by Art Marcum, Nick Santora, and Matt Holloway. The cast includes Ray Stevenson, Julie Benz, Dominic West, uh, Colin Salmon, Doug Hutchinson, and Wayne Knight. Yeah, I had to try to remember that. So, also, if you notice my kind of eye looking a little red and squinty, I kind of been rubbing at it a little bit. It's been kind of bothering me a little bit. I don't think it's anything to worry about, but I just thought you should know if you're concerned. Um, but yeah, give me a minute. Sorry, cat. No, my cat Tally nearly knocked something over near my table here. In any case, yes, I did rewatch the Punisher Warzone. I have seen this before. Um, this is a requel, much like Incredible Hulk. This is a requel where it is a reboot of the 2004's Thomas Jane Punisher, and it also is a sequel to the Punisher that takes place about 5 to 6 years later. Um, Unlike Incredible Hulk, that did vastly better than 2003's Ang Lee's Hulk, Punisher Warzone unfortunately did not do very well in terms of popularity. It didn't get many tickets. In fact, this is the lowest grossing movie Marvel film of all time, and this is under Howard the Duck. Going to say that again. This is the lowest grossing Marvel film of all time, under Howard the Duck. And yeah, she just knocks him over again. Oh, she's a handful. In any case, yeah, I remember seeing this. I didn't like it one bit. Um, it was a far cry from the Thomas Jane version. It was a big change, and I think a lot of why this did under very badly, it bombed, was because they changed out the characters with Thomas Jane, because everyone likes Thomas Jane. And granted, while the 2004 Punisher wasn't well received by critics, and audience are kind of a mixed bag, I think it still has a following. I remember liking it. It had a pretty consistent tone and knew what to focus on, but I don't know. It didn't quite reach you know boundaries like Spider-Man, the X-Men films did. So um, in any case, yeah, it's a big change. Um, there was some studio meddling, including Lionsgate uh, firing the composer for the soundtrack of the film uh, because um, because they wanted to go for a kind of like soundtrack, a darker soundtrack similar to The Dark Knight, from what I understand or research. And because The Dark Knight at the time was the most popular and one of the best comic movies of all time, so they were trying to emulate that a little bit. So, but in any case, yeah, I remember not liking it. I decided to watch again. Maybe it would be better. So here's my review of Punisher Warzone. So the story in Punisher Warzone is Frank Castle as the Punisher. He's been doing this for 5 to 6 years, played by Ray Stevenson, by the way, and he's taking down taking down criminals, and especially nowadays crime bosses or crime lords, crime families, those who just manage to get away with it, you know, get out of the system entirely. So one night he invades a home, kills a bunch of people, obviously. He soon comes across Billy, which I don't remember his last name, but he's just called Billy originally, played by Dominic West, who later becomes Jigsaw because Punisher managed to put him in a glass crushing type machine. I don't know what it's called, but it messes up his face. It severely disfigures his face, and now he's on the warpath. He's gone crazy. He wants to destroy Frank Castle. At the same time, there are some subplots. Frank Castle accidentally kills an agent who was investigating the crime family, and he's feeling immense amount of guilt because of that. Because of his actions, the one of the FBI or agents, Paul Belinsky, played by Colin Salmon. It sounds like salmon. I'm just going to Salmon because I assume that's the case. In any, but regardless, he wants to bring the Punisher in, but of course the cops don't even seem to be that interested in getting the Punisher because he seems to be doing good or seems to be getting rid of very evil people. So, but he's wanting to bring this in because he's by the book. He wants to you know make do things right and that's lawful and justful. Even though he doesn't quite see the system as lawful and justful until much later. And in any case, yeah, there's kind of some subplots there. Um, After rewatching it, I still didn't like it. I don't know if this is considered the worst Punisher film by any means because there was the 1980s Dolph Lundgren version, which I haven't seen, and it's kind of a toss up between those two. But I'm not 100% certain. But as of now, because I've seen the 2004's Punisher, yeah, she'd knock something over again. 2004's Punisher, and then this 2008 Punisher, it, yeah, I do consider that kind of the worst one. It's a huge, because this is a reboot, it takes a very different direction, trying to be more comic booky, certain ways shot. Now, not exactly like 2003's Hulk, where Ang Lee was using editing to make it look like there was like comic panels and wipes and cuts and stuff like that to try to make it look like it's popping off the screen or anything. But it does try to do some comic book elements. Um, yeah, and then of course its tone. The tone is all over the place because it tries to be serious. It also tries to be kind of goofy and campy. It doesn't work for both. The writing doesn't support it. The characters don't support it. Some of them are just kind of either sleepwalking or just over the top. Dominic West, especially as Jigsaw, is way over the top. Even after he turns the Jigsaw, he's he's just he's just kind of hamming it up. It's almost like he doesn't really care about what he's doing. He just wants to do it for a paycheck, and he's just gonna have some fun with it. And in a way, I admire that. At the same time, I can't take him seriously as this menacing Jigsaw character. Um, Especially kind of the kind of tough guy voice. He's kind of like when I don't know if you've seen any kind of mafia type films. Godfather, Goodfellas. I think Goodfellas is a better example. I haven't seen Goodfellas in a while, but yeah, I think Ray Liotta would be a good example. But in any case, I think I don't know. I think they should have kept it being serious with maybe some kind of tongue-in-cheek type humor to, kind of offset some of the seriousness because it's a really kind of big deal. But then of course you got the over-the-top action and blood and gore because yes, this is way over the top, and this in a way this kind of makes sense for the Punisher because I think in the comics, I haven't read the comics, but I think a lot of the times he does kill pretty gruesomely, or sometimes he does it quick, other times he really just brutalizes and destroys this criminals with very violent acts. I'm not 100% certain, but in any case, some of the overtop action kind of fun. Other times doesn't feel like it's as impactful or meaningful, or sometimes it comes off as very silly. Like there's like one moment where um, he because he does do some action, he does do some punching and stuff, and he kicks on other characters. There's like one scene where he actually punches a guy so hard that it almost like it. I think they cut pretty quickly, but it's like his hand goes right through his face at the criminal's face, and that's a bit silly. in a way. The film also tries to emulate other films. Batman '89, for example, when especially when when Billy turns to the Jigsaw, we see he asks for a mirror to look at his face. Very similar to Jack Nicholson turn being the Joker. Again, we got Hulk 2003, and it also incorporates. And I haven't seen this in a while, so I can't make any too many comparisons. But it does feel like, and did have to research a little bit. It does try to emulate Frank Miller's Sin City. In a way, I wish it went for a black and white version, like a black and white um, Frank Miller, because I like the 2004 one because it almost feels like somewhat of a revenge film noir in a way, and I think this would have been perfect, minus maybe some of the blood and gore, very violent actions. But I don't know. Maybe that works because Sin City kind of did that and they stylized it a little bit. This one didn't really have that much style, not much grace um, to it. Excuse me. Um, Ray Stevenson as the Punisher. He just kind of sleepwalks through the movie. I wish Thomas Jane was back in the back was made that return, but he didn't want to. And I don't think Ray Stevenson's bad necessarily. It's just that they don't give him much to work with in terms of the writing and story and some of the themes they tackle. Even the design or outfit that Punisher wears now is very safe. Is probably the word. He just wears kind of a bulletproof vest, tactical pants and shirt and whatnot, and still carries the guns. What does irk me a little bit is that while they do have the emblem of the skull, it is so elementary looking. Like it's faded, it's degraded. Even when you can see the skull, it it doesn't look as scary or as impressive as the Thomas Jane version. Um, and I mean, I'll show you pics of the skull itself, but yeah, it doesn't look great. And even it's because it's so faded, it's not that impressive to look at, and it doesn't really instill fear to criminals. Similar how Batman, Bruce Wayne dons the Batman outfit to still fear. So in a way, why do they make that? Frankly, I looked this up. Lexi Alexander didn't like the skull emblem, and she didn't want to use it because she thought it was a bit childish. But because the emblem is part of the Punisher, she compromised and went with that design. So yeah, I don't know why. Um, Lexi Alexander didn't even know a ton about the Punisher. I think going on, and she had to read a couple comic books, so she was given um, more leeway to basically, make it as bloody and gory and action as she wants it to be, as well as choose the actor to play the Punisher. So I guess she got what she wanted, but I don't know exactly what happened behind the story, and I think some of it is just kind of the writing and tone and how that's handled. So yeah. Um, anyway, Dominic West as Jigsaw, I think I mentioned him already. I'm sorry if I did. Is hamming it up. It's kind of fun, very silly. Can't take him seriously. He also has a brother play Looney Bin Jim, played by Doug Hutchinson. If you remember him, he was the cruel guard on the Stephen King's The Green Mile with Tom Hanks and Michael Clark Duncan, um, where he killed Dell's mouse. And if you've seen the movie, and spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie, he gets put into an asylum when John Coffey, you know, uses him to commit an act that makes him go, completely like, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but he just kind of stands there, like in a daze and doesn't know what he's doing. In a way, I almost think it would be kind of funny if they went with that route a little bit, like maybe hint at he's just coming out of the asylum, and whatnot. And then even him, he's really campy and very not very serious looking. Though he does have that look on his face that make him kind of intimidating, but at the same time, the lines he's given or what he's supposed to say is is pretty over the top and silly. Um, it's and he also tries to take on the characteristics of and I might be giving a little bit away here, but Hannibal Lecter from Anthony Hopkins' character. Um, yeah, let's see. Is there anything else? Wayne Knight's in this. The Newman from Seinfeld. Um, not much for him. They don't really give him anything funny to do, um, nor anything that meaningful. But he's kind of like the guy who really tries to keep Frank on, on his quest for, to his quest for just to kill criminals and whatnot. Um, other, and then you got Colin Salmon as Paul Belinsky. Fine, he does okay. I've seen him in. I remember him in Alien versus Predator, and I think he was all right in that. He was short, but he was all right, and I think he was all right in two. And in the cops that he has to deal with, and just kind of laugh him off, and it's very childish and very kind of, you know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to come up with the words right to say. But yeah, it's hard to take this seriously. I wish it did take it seriously. Um, but it does have some interesting themes, though I wish they explored it more. The idea of Frank, who had made a mistake in killing an agent, a good guy, and living with that guilt for the rest of his life. Um, and we see him kind of trying to get through it, or he's at a point where he wants to basically retire because he thinks this one mistake kind of ruins everything for him. uh it's interesting, and even there's a moment where he meets up with Julie Benz character, Angela, the wife of the agent that he killed, and she mentioned a good thing about who punishes the Punisher, and it's interesting. But again, it's not explored enough to really make a huge impact as it should be. There's also a moment where um, Frank Castle meets a former criminal who doesn't believe he can go straight, or be on the straight and narrow and be a good force for good. And it does make an interesting direction, but take an interesting direction where the former criminal actually does stuff and actually helps. We don't see much of it, but he actually did try to do some good despite everything that he he done in his past. And there's a great line near the end with him um, that is pretty good. I think it's pretty solid overall. Um, but yeah, it doesn't really go that far. It doesn't feel like as impactful. Um, they changed up Frank Castle's story a bit. If you've seen the Thomas Jane version, his whole entire family was killed by Howard Saint's crew. This one's very different because it only involves the deaths of his wife and son, and now a daughter this time, because they witnessed something. And I know I'm giving a little bit away, but I'm just kind of explaining how it's different this time around. It's not as integral to the story, but again, it is the thing that keeps Frank from going on his crusade to basically destroy, you know, deal with criminals. As for the action, I think I mentioned the action. There's not actually a lot of action if you really watch it. There's quite a bit in the beginning. There's quite a bit at the end. But otherwise, and some of it's all right. Some, like I said, but there's a big chunk in the middle where there's not really that a ton of action. It kind of just tries to play, the straight, try to play it as a serious yet can't be kind of thing. And yeah, there is surprisingly not as much um, action as you think. So, uh, let's see, was there anything else? Um, No, this also I should also mention this only was shot in 40 days. I'm looking at my notes here. Um, but yeah, um, I think that's about it all I can say. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of this, but so I think I would give Punisher Warzone 1.5. I just thought it was boring. I even played with my phone a little bit because I just wasn't as engaged in the action. Now, maybe if I had seen it in 2008, or maybe if I was a little younger, you know, in high school roughly, I might have had a good fun overall, regardless of the story and characters not being as up to par with 2000, with the 2004 version. But as of now, I I don't see this as a really great movie. If you want to check out The Punisher Warzone, that's totally fine if you're a really big fan of The Punisher. But otherwise, if you take the emblem basically out of The Punisher, it just feels like a generic bloody action film. That's basically it. And that's I miss the Thomas Jane one where he actually has to be very creative with how he takes down criminals and um, you know, but otherwise, this one just kind of goes guns and blazing basically. So yeah, I give this 1.5. It's not it's not like then it's not anger reducing or anything, but it's not worth your time either. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Punisher Warzone? Leave in the comments below. Give a like or dislike the review if you wish. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you can be updated on any future reviews. Um, in that case, I will see you guys in the next review. Bye.